The night was cold, darker than usual, and the ruins of the alien village lay silent under the broken moon. The war had swept through only hours ago, burning homes, destroying families, and leaving nothing but ashes and echoes among the wreckage. A small alien girl lay still, half hidden under the fallen wooden beams of her destroyed home. Her skin was pale with dust, her thin hands trembling, and her wide glowing eyes full of fear. She could not move her legs, no matter how hard she tried. She was paralyzed from the waist down. The battle had crushed her world and now her body. But what hurt more than pain was not the fire, not the smoke, not the hunger. It was the betrayal of her own people, her relatives, her neighbors. Those who once played with her and laughed with her all stood around in silence earlier. They looked at her broken form, shaking their heads. "She cannot walk," one said coldly. "She will only slow us down." Another whispered, "She is a burden," the elder declared, and then, as if she was no longer part of their world, they turned away. They left her in the dirt to die. The girl's small voice tried to call out, but her throat was weak. "Please, don't go," she begged, but her people did not look back. The sound of their footsteps grew smaller and smaller until the night swallowed them whole. Now silence ruled. The girl's eyes filled with tears, hot and endless. Her chest tightened. With the fear of being truly alone, she tried to drag herself forward, but the pain in her legs made her cry. Her arms were thin and weak, every movement heavy. Her heart whispered to her, "This is the end. You were never meant to survive." And for a moment, she believed it. The stars above seemed far away, cold and distant. Her tears fell onto the ashes around her, mixing with blood and dust. Her small voice whispered into the empty air, "I don't want to die here." But somewhere in the shadows of the ruined forest, footsteps approached. Not alien footsteps. Not the same rhythm as her people. These were heavier, firmer, carrying a strange weight of strength and will. She froze, her eyes widening in terror. Was it another soldier come to finish what the war had started? Would he crush her like the others had ignored her? A figure stepped out from the smoke, tall and broad. It was a human, armored in a mix of gear that looked both strong and worn from many battles. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were alive, blue eyes that carried no cruelty. Only alertness and something softer, something she had not seen in anyone else's gaze tonight. He paused when he saw her, his steps halting. The soldier looked at the trembling girl. Broken, paralyzed, abandoned, and for a moment he said nothing. Only silence stretched between them. The girl's voice broke the air first. "Leave me," she whispered. Her tone carried both fear and shame. You'll only get in trouble. I can't move. I am nothing." Her words cut the air like shattered glass, but the human didn't turn away. Instead, he stepped closer, slow and careful, as if afraid to frighten her. He knelt down beside her, his shadow covering her from the cold night wind. Her glowing alien eyes looked into his, waiting for rejection. But instead, his rough voice spoke, steady and calm. Not nothing, he reached out a hand, offering his cloak. "Warm and heavy, you are alive. That is enough." The girl's lips trembled, her heart torn between hope and disbelief. "No one wants me." She whispered again, "I can't walk, I can't fight, I am useless." But the human only shook his head. "You are not useless," he replied, his words simple, but heavy with truth. "You breathe, you fight to live. That makes you stronger than many I've seen." He carefully wrapped the cloak around her fragile body, lifting her gently. The girl gasped as her body rose into the air, her arms instinctively gripping his chest plate. Her small heart raced. Not from fear anymore, but from the strange feeling of being wanted, of being carried. She had been abandoned by her own blood. But here was a stranger, a human, who refused to leave her behind. The ruins around them groaned as the wind passed through broken wood and stone. The fire's glow faded in the distance, leaving only silence and the sound of the human's steady breathing. The girl buried her face against his chest, tears falling. Silently, for the first time since the night began. She did not feel like she was already dead. The human adjusted his grip. Looking out into the darkness of the path ahead, danger waited in every shadow, but his voice was firm. "You are safe now," he whispered. The girl closed her eyes, the words echoing in her soul like a fragile promise of hope. And so, under the broken moonlight, the journey began. A paralyzed alien girl, left to die by her own people, now carried by a human stranger, two broken lives crossing in the ashes of war. Neither knew what awaited them beyond the forest. But both knew this night was no longer about death. It was about survival, about kindness, about the small spark of something far stronger than fear. It was about love, even if they did not yet know it. The forest was dark and alive with whispers, every broken branch sounding like a warning. The human soldier carried the alien girl close to his chest, his arms aching, but his step steady. Her head rested against his armor, her glowing eyes half shut, still not believing someone had chosen to lift her instead of leaving her. Each step he took was against the voice of reason, against the survival instincts drilled into him as a soldier. But his heart told him something his training never did. She deserves to live. Behind them, faint sounds of movement echoed through the ruins. The girl stiffened in his arms, whispering, "They're still out there." Her voice cracked with fear. "If they find us, they'll kill you too." The human's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the trees. "I've been hunted before," he said quietly, "but I've never carried someone worth dying for until now." The girl's chest tightened at his words, confusion mixing with warmth. She didn't understand him. Her own people, her family, the ones who should have protected her, had called her worthless, yet this human, this stranger from another world, was calling her worth it. They moved deeper into the forest, the cold biting harder. The human's breath fogged in the night air as he shifted her weight. The girl whispered, "You don't even know me. Why are you doing this?" His eyes stayed forward, his steps never slowing. "I don't need to know you," he answered. "I just need to know you're alive." Her heart trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She wanted to believe him, but fear clung tightly to her soul. "What if I slow you down?" She asked again, her voice small. "What if you can't escape because of me?" The human finally looked down at her, his eyes hard but calm. "Then I'll fight until I can't," he said simply, "and when I fall, I'll make sure you're still breathing." The girl turned her face away, hiding her tears against his armor. She didn't want him to see how much his words broke the walls around her heart. She had been left behind once tonight. She couldn't bear the thought of being left again. But his arms held her tight, steady, unshaken, as though the weight of her fragile body gave him strength instead of weakness. Suddenly, the forest shifted, a flash of light in the distance, voices carried on the cold wind. The human ducked low, moving behind a fallen tree, his breathing shallow but controlled. Through the cracks of the branches, the girl saw Shadow's alien raiders, searching, their weapons glowing faintly. Her heart pounded in her chest, her fingers clutching the soldier's cloak. "They're looking for survivors," she whispered, her voice breaking. "If they find me, they'll finish what they started." The human's grip around her tightened. "Not while I'm here," he whispered back, his tone so sharp it felt like a blade cutting the night. The raiders passed slowly, their eyes scanning the dark. Their steps heavy on the soil, every second felt like an eternity. The girl's breath hitched, afraid even the sound of her heartbeat would give them away. The human stayed completely still, his muscles frozen, yet ready to move if needed. One raider turned, his eyes narrowing, The girl almost cried out, thinking they were caught, but then the raider turned away, following the others deeper into. The forest silence fell again, but the danger had left its mark. The human let out a slow breath. The girl realized then how tightly he had been holding her. As if letting go for even a moment meant losing her forever, he stood, shifting her in his arms once more and began walking again. You see? He said softly, we survived another minute. And another minute means hope. Hope. The word echoed in her mind like something foreign yet precious. Her people had taken hope from her when they left her in the dirt, but this human gave it back. With every step he took carrying her, hours passed as they moved deeper into the forest until the ruins were nothing but a memory. The girl's voice finally broke the silence, weak but curious. What will you do with me? The soldier looked down at her. His eyes softer now. Keep you alive, he said firmly. That's all that matters right now. She stared at him, trying to understand, even if I can't walk. She asked. He didn't hesitate, especially because you can't. Her throat tightened, her tears threatening again. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had defended her so strongly. The night stretched on, but the girl did not feel the same terror as before. She rested her head against his shoulder. Her body weak, but her heart strangely steady. Every time her mind whispered, she was worthless. The human's voice answered back, louder, stronger, refusing to let her believe it. In the distance, the faint glow of dawn began to touch the horizon. The human slowed his pace, his eyes searching the trees until he spotted a fallen structure half buried in vines. It was small, abandoned, but it would serve as shelter. He carried her inside, setting her gently on a pile of old cloth. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide. You risked your life for me, she whispered. He knelt in front of her, his face calm, but his voice heavy with promise. I didn't risk it, he said quietly. I chose it. Her chest ached, not from pain, but from the weight of those words. For the first time, she felt that maybe she was not a burden, maybe she was worth saving. And in that broken shelter, under the rising sun, the paralyzed alien girl realized something no one had ever made her feel before. She was not alone. The forest was quiet at dawn, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind of silence that carried danger in every shadow. The human soldier stood guard at the edge of the broken shelter, his rifle resting in his hands, his eyes sharp and restless. Behind him, on the pile of cloth, the paralyzed alien girl stirred, her weak body trying to adjust, her eyes opened slowly, catching the first golden light of morning that filtered through the cracks of the old roof. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Her people had abandoned her, left her to die in the ashes of her home. But here she was, alive, wrapped in a soldier's cloak, her body carried through the night. Her heart beat faster when she realized he was still there, watching over her. The human had not left. Not even when the sun rose, he had chosen to stay. The girl pushed herself up on her arms, though her legs remained still. The effort made her breath quick and shallow. The human turned at the sound, his eyes softening when he saw her awake. You're alive, he said with a small smile, as if that simple fact was victory enough. Her throat tightened. Why do you keep saying that? She asked, her voice trembling. Because it matters, he replied. Every breath you take means the world hasn't beaten you yet. She lowered her gaze. Confused and overwhelmed, her people had told her the opposite, that she was weak, useless, already gone. But this human's words carried strength she didn't know how to hold. Her heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was right. The human crouched down beside her. Offering a piece of bread from his ration pack, she hesitated, staring at it. You should keep it, she whispered. You need your strength more than I do. But he pressed it gently into her hands, his voice firm. I can walk, You can't. That means you eat first." Tears filled her eyes as she took a small bite. The taste plain, but more precious than anything she had eaten in days. After she finished, he helped her drink water from a canteen, the way he held it steady. Patient, careful not to spill a drop, made her heart ache. No one had treated her with such care before. Not even her own blood. She swallowed hard and whispered, "Why do you care so much?" His eyes lingered on hers for a moment before turning back to the forest. "Because someone has to," he said quietly. Hours passed as they prepared to move again. The girl's fear returned, her voice low. "They'll find us. They always find us." The human checked his weapon, his cloak, and finally looked back at her. "Then let them," he said. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Her chest tightened, her tears threatening again. He spoke with such simple certainty, no hesitation, no doubt, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. When he lifted her again, she clung to him tighter this time. Her arms wrapped around his shoulders, her head resting against his chest. She no longer fought him, no longer begged to be left behind. For the first time, she let herself believe in him. His steady heartbeat echoed against her ear, and with each step, she felt her fear loosen its grip. They traveled through dense trees, across shallow rivers, and up small rocky slopes. Every obstacle was harder with her weight in his arms. His muscles ached, his breath grew heavier. But not once did he slow down. Not once did he complain. When she whispered, "You can put me down. I'll crawl if I have to." He shook his head sharply. "You're not crawling," he said, his voice like stone. "You're moving forward. With me." The girl buried her face against his chest again. Her tears fell silently, but this time they weren't only from sadness. They were from the strange warmth growing inside her, a warmth she didn't dare name yet, but one that made her feel alive. As night approached once more, the forest grew colder. The human finally stopped by a riverbank, setting her gently on a flat stone. He knelt beside the water, filling his canteen, then splashing his face to stay awake. The girl watched him, her chest heavy with unspoken words. At last, she whispered, "Why don't you run? Why don't you save yourself?" He looked at her, water dripping from his chin, his eyes steady and sure. "Because saving you is saving myself," he said simply. "I was alone before this. I had nothing to fight for. Now I do." Her breath caught her heart racing. She had been abandoned because she couldn't walk. But to him, she was the reason to keep walking. Her hands shook as she reached out, touching his sleeve. Her voice was soft, trembling. "You? You don't even know me." He covered her hand with his own, strong and steady. "I don't need to," he said. "I just need to know you're worth it, and you are." The stars filled the sky above, shining brighter through the trees. The girl lay back against the stone, her tears falling silently, not from fear this time, but from something she had thought she lost forever. Hope. The human sat beside her, his weapon across his knees, his eyes never leaving the forest. But for the first time, he wasn't only a soldier, he was a guardian, a protector. And she was not just a broken girl anymore. She was someone worth saving. In the quiet night, as the river whispered and the stars shone, the bond between them grew stronger. The war, the danger, the pain, all of it still surrounded them. But inside that fragile moment, the girl felt something powerful. She felt alive. And though she could not stand, she knew one thing for certain: with him, she would never be left behind again. The forest stretched endlessly, every step echoing with danger. By the second night, the human's arms ached from carrying the paralyzed alien girl, but his grip never loosened. The girl, wrapped in his cloak, kept her glowing eyes half closed, listening to his steady heartbeat for the first time in her life. She felt safe in someone's arms, yet fear still followed them. Like a shadow that refused to let go, the air grew colder, the trees thicker, and the path more difficult. The human's eyes scanned the forest with every step, searching for a place to hide. Finally, through the tangle of vines, he spotted an old wooden cabin, long abandoned, leaning against a hill. Its walls were cracked, its roof broken in places, but it was shelter. He approached carefully, kicking the door open with his boot. His weapon raised, dust and silence greeted him. Nothing more. He set the girl down gently inside, her body trembling from exhaustion. The girl looked around the dark cabin, fear flickering in her eyes. "Will we be safe here?" she whispered. The human knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Safe enough for now," he replied, his voice calm but watchful. He lit a small fire in the corner with broken wood, the light filling the room with warmth. For the first time since the war began, the girl felt heat on her skin. She held her hands out, whispering, "It's warm." As if she had forgotten what warmth felt like, the human unpacked his gear. Pulling out food rations, he broke a piece in half, handing it to her before taking his own. She stared at the bread, then at him. "Why do you always give me food first?" He looked at her firmly. "Because you needed more." Her chest ached at his words, tears threatening her eyes again. "You treat me like I matter," she whispered softly. His eyes softened, and he replied, "Because you do." The girl ate slowly, the fire's glow reflecting in her eyes. She thought about the night her people abandoned her. She remembered their cold voices, the way they turned away without looking back. And now here was this human, a stranger, who gave her warmth, food, and hope. Her voice shook as she asked, "Do humans always care like this?" The soldier looked into the fire, his face unreadable. "Not always," he admitted. "But sometimes, one choice is enough to change everything." The girl leaned back against the wall, exhausted but comforted. Her small hands clutched the cloak around her. She whispered, "What if they come here? What if they find us?" The human's hand rested on his weapon, his eyes hard as steel. "Then they'll regret it," he said quietly. Something about the way he said it made her believe him. For the first time, she didn't feel like prey. She felt protected. Hours passed, the fire glowing low. The girl's eyelids grew heavy, but she forced them open. Not wanting to sleep, she wanted to keep watching him, the man who refused to abandon her. Finally, her voice broke the silence. Again, soft as a whisper, "Why didn't you leave me behind, like the others?" The human's gaze stayed fixed on the flames. "Because leaving someone to die isn't who I am," he said firmly. Her lips trembled, her heart racing at his words. She whispered, "But you don't even know my name." He turned to look at her, his eyes calm. "Then tell me," he said. The girl froze, her throat tight. No one had asked for her name since before the war. Slowly, she whispered it, almost afraid to speak it out loud. When he repeated it softly, like a promise, her tears fell freely. Her name mattered again because he had spoken it. The cabin was quiet through the night, only the crackle of fire and the soldier's steady breathing filling the air. The girl finally allowed herself to rest, her eyes closing as she leaned against his shoulder. For once, she did not dream of fire or abandonment. She dreamed of light, warmth, and safety. But outside the cabin, danger was not far. Unseen in the distance, alien raiders moved through the forest, following faint trails left behind. Their voices carried on the wind, cruel and sharp. The human's eyes snapped open, his hand gripping his weapon as he heard them. He didn't wake the girl, not yet. He would let her rest as long as he could. But his heart whispered a warning. Safety was only temporary, and the choice he made to carry her would soon demand a price. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the crackling fire inside the broken cabin. The alien girl slept against the soldier's shoulder, her thin body wrapped in his cloak, her face calm for the first time in days. But the human did not sleep. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning the cracks of the cabin walls, his weapon resting across his knees. He had felt it. The forest was not empty anymore. Something was moving in the dark. The faint crunch of boots on dead leaves echoed outside. Low voices whispered in. A language the girl knew too well, raiders. The same kind of men who had burned her village. The same who had abandoned her to die. The human's jaw tightened, his hand tightening on the weapon. They had followed his trail, and now they were here. He looked at the girl, still sleeping, unaware of the danger creeping closer. For a moment, he thought of waking her, but his heart refused. She deserved one more moment of peace. The door creaked suddenly, the sound of boots pressing against old wood. The human rose silently, lowering the girl onto the cloak, his body moving between her and the door. His shadow stretched across the cabin, tall and unyielding. The door burst open with a crash, 3 raiders stepping inside, their eyes glowing in the firelight. One sneered when he saw the girl lying on the floor. So, the cripple survived after all, he hissed in their alien tongue. The human raised his weapon, his voice cold. She's not yours to take. The raiders froze, their eyes narrowing at the human, a Terran. One spat, "What is a human doing here?" The human didn't answer, his silence sharper than any words. The raiders raised their weapons, energy blades humming in the firelight. The girl stirred, her eyes opening just enough to see. Her heart froze in terror as she saw the scene. Her own people, their weapons pointed at the man who had saved her. Her lips trembled. "No, please," she whispered weakly, but the human didn't move. Didn't waver. He stepped forward, his rifle raised. "Leave now," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of steel, "or you'll never walk out." The raiders laughed, their cruel voices bouncing off the walls. "You dare threaten us? With her? She's nothing but a burden." One stepped closer, his blade glowing bright. But before he could strike, the cabin roared with fire and thunder. The human fired, the blast striking the raider in the chest, throwing him against the wall. The other 2 charged forward with a roar, blades cutting the air. The girl screamed, covering her ears as the fight exploded before her. The cabin shook with every clash of steel and fire. The human fought like a storm, blocking, striking, moving faster than she thought possible. One raider lunged at his side, but the human twisted, slamming the butt of his rifle into the alien's jaw. Another blade swung toward his chest, sparks flying as it scraped against his armor. He gritted his teeth, shoving the attacker back, his rifle firing again in a burst of light. The raider fell, smoke rising from his body. The last one stood frozen, his eyes wide with fear as he realized this human was no ordinary soldier. But fear twisted into rage, and with a scream, he charged once more. The human met him halfway, their weapons clashing, the sound sharp and brutal. For a long moment, the 2 locked, strength against strength. Then, with a sharp movement, the human drove his knife into the raider's chest. The alien gasped, his body falling limp, collapsing onto the floor. Silence returned, broken only by the heavy sound of the soldier's breathing. Blood trickled down his arm where the blade had grazed him. But he didn't falter. He turned quickly, kneeling beside the girl. Her eyes were wide with tears, her body shaking. You could have died," she whispered, her voice breaking. He wiped the blood from his face with the back of his hand, his eyes steady. "But I didn't," he said firmly, "and you're safe." She burst into tears, reaching for him with trembling hands. "Why do you keep doing this for me?" she cried. "I'm nothing. I can't even stand. I can't help you." The soldier caught her hands, pressing them gently against his chest. "You don't have to fight," he said softly. "That's my job." Her tears fell harder, soaking his cloak. But why? She whispered again, broken. His voice was quiet but unshakable, because no one deserves to be left behind. The girl buried her face against him, her sobs filling the cabin. The human held her close, his body trembling from the fight. But his arms steady around her, the firelight flickered over the broken walls, casting shadows of blood and smoke. But in the middle of it, something stronger burned. Not fear, not pain, something else. The bond between them, forged in survival, growing stronger with every battle. Outside, the forest fell silent once again. The raiders lay dead, their threat ended. But the war was far from over. The human knew more would come, more danger, more trials. But as he looked down at the girl in his arms, her tears slowly fading, her breath soft against his chest, he knew he would face every one of them, because she was no longer just a burden. She was his reason. And in that fragile cabin, among the ashes of war, the paralyzed alien girl realized the truth too. She was not alone anymore. She was loved, even if he hadn't said the word yet. And that love was stronger than any fear that waited outside. The cabin was quiet again after the storm of violence. The bodies of the raiders had been dragged outside, their weapons thrown into the river. The human soldier returned inside, his arm bleeding from the fight, but his steps still steady. The alien girl looked at him with wide, glowing eyes, her chest tight with worry. "You're hurt," she whispered, her hands trembling. He shook his head, brushing off the blood as if it meant nothing. "I've been hurt worse," he said, his voice calm. Then he knelt beside her, checking her condition first, not his own. "Are you safe? Did they touch you?" She shook her head quickly, tears filling her eyes. "You protected me again," she whispered, her voice breaking. The soldier gave a small smile, tired but warm. "That's what I said I would do," he replied. But when she looked at the cut on his arm, her tears spilled. "They'll keep coming," she said softly, "because of me. You'll always be in danger." The human's jaw tightened, but he leaned closer, his eyes steady. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You are not the danger. They are. You are the reason I fight, not the reason I bleed." Her chest ached. At his words, she wanted to argue, but the way he looked at her silenced her. She realized then that his wounds did not frighten him, because saving her mattered more. Her hands shook as she reached for his arm, gently trying to wrap it with a torn piece of cloth. Her voice trembled. "Then, at least, let me help you." The soldier paused, his blue eyes softening as he allowed her to tie the cloth around his wound. Her small hands fumbled, but he stayed still, watching her with a quiet expression. When she finished, she lowered her head, whispering, "I'm not useless, not to you." The human's hand touched hers gently. "You never were," he said softly. Her heart raced, her cheeks warm. Oh, no one had ever told her those words. Not once in her life. She felt as though her broken body did not matter anymore. Not when his eyes looked at her like that. Days passed in the hidden shelter. The soldier repaired the roof, strengthened the walls, and hunted small animals for food. The girl did what she could, even from where she sat. She cleaned their small space, arranged food, and spoke to him when the silence grew heavy. She told him stories of her people, of her childhood before the war, and in return, he told her about Earth, about oceans that stretched forever, skies filled with birds, and cities that glowed brighter than stars. Her glowing eyes widened with wonder, her heart racing as she listened. "You speak of your world like it's beautiful," she whispered. He gave a small smile. "It is, but so is this moment, each night." When the fire crackled low, she found herself watching him more. The way he kept guard, even when he was exhausted, the way his hands never trembled. When danger came, the way his voice softened only for her. Her chest tightened with a strange, new feeling, something she had never known before. It was more than safety, more than gratitude. It was love, though she was afraid to name it one afternoon. The soldier returned with wood and metal scraps from the ruins nearby. The girl tilted her head, confused. "What are those for?" she asked. He set them down, wiping sweat from his brow. "You said you felt useless," he replied, his tone quiet but firm. "I don't ever want you to feel that again." Her eyes widened as she watched him work through the evening, hammering, shaping, tightening, until finally he pushed forward something new. A simple chair with wheels, built from broken parts, but strong enough to carry her. The girl's breath caught in her throat, tears filling her glowing eyes. You made this for me," she whispered. He nodded, his tired smile soft. "So you can move where you want. Not just where I carry you." Her tears fell freely as he lifted her gently and placed her onto the chair. For the first time since the night of the attack, she moved herself forward, her small hands gripping the wheels. She gasped, laughing through her tears. "I can move." The soldier's eyes softened, his voice quiet. "You've always had strength. This just lets you show it." She turned toward him, her face glowing with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. He stepped closer, crouching so his eyes met hers. "You don't have to," he said softly. "Just live." "That's enough." Her chest tightened, her heart racing faster than ever before. She reached out with trembling hands, catching his sleeve. Her voice was almost a whisper. "You gave me more than life. You gave me love." The soldier froze for a moment, his eyes widening at her words. But then he smiled. Not with pity, not with doubt, but with warmth. He took her hand in his voice low and steady. "And you gave me a reason." The girl's tears fell again. But this time she did not hide them. She let herself cry freely, knowing he would never leave. She was not just a burden, not just the broken one left to die. She was alive, she was loved, and she was stronger than she had ever believed. That night, under the soft glow of the fire, she leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time, she did not feel paralyzed. She felt whole, because his heart had carried her further than her legs ever could. The days passed slowly, and the cabin became more than just a shelter. It became their world, their safe place hidden in the ruins of war. The alien girl, once abandoned as useless, now moved freely in the chair the human soldier had built. Each turn of the wheels filled her heart with joy, reminding her that she was alive, reminding her that someone believed in her. The soldier watched her each day, his tired eyes softening whenever she smiled. To him, her laughter was brighter than any victory, louder than any weapon. But outside their fragile home, the world was not quiet. The war continued, and the threat of discovery never truly left. The human knew it. He often sat at the cabin door during the night, his weapon across his knees, his gaze fixed on the dark forest. Yet every time he turned back and saw her safe beside the fire, his heart whispered the same truth. She is worth every risk. One evening, as the firelight flickered across the cabin walls, the girl rolled her chair closer to him. Her glowing eyes searched his face, her voice soft. "You never rest," she whispered. He gave a small smile, shaking his head. "I rest when you're safe," he replied. Her throat tightened, her heart aching at his words. "You've given me so much," she said, her hands trembling as they gripped the wheels of her chair. "I was left behind, broken, forgotten. But you," her voice broke, "you gave me home, you gave me love." The soldier's eyes softened, and he reached for her hand. He held it gently, his rough fingers warm against her cold skin. "You gave me something too," he said quietly. "I was a soldier with nothing left, no reason to keep going, but you. You became my reason." Her eyes filled with tears, her chest heavy with emotions she could barely name. In her people's eyes, she had been worthless, but in his, she was everything. The days grew warmer, and the forest outside began to bloom with new life. The human repaired the broken fence, built a small garden from scraps, and even found wild berries to grow. The girl helped in every way she could, her laughter mixing with his quiet hums as they worked side by side. She no longer felt like a burden. She felt like a partner, a companion, someone who mattered. One night, as the stars filled the sky, she looked up at him with trembling lips. Her voice shook. "Do you ever think about leaving here? Going back to your people?" The soldier looked into the fire for a long moment before answering. "I had a world once," he said softly, "but it feels far away now. Here with you, this is my world now." Her tears spilled freely, her heart pounding. No one had ever chosen her, not once. Yet here was a human who had chosen her above everything else. She whispered, her voice barely audible. "Then I am not afraid anymore." He looked at her, his blue eyes steady. "You don't need to be," he said. The nights that followed were filled with quiet peace for the first time in her life. She began to dream of a future not of war or abandonment, but of mornings filled with light, of laughter, of love. And though she could not walk, she no longer felt broken, because her heart had found someone who saw her as whole. But the world did not let them be in peace for long. One morning, distant explosions shook the ground, the sound of battle rolling across the forest. The girl's hands trembled as she turned to him. "They're coming again, aren't they?" The soldier checked his weapon, his face calm but firm. "They always will," he admitted. She gripped his arm tightly, her voice desperate. "I can't lose you. Not now. Not after everything." He crouched in front of her, his hand cupping hers gently. "You won't," he said softly, "because I'll always fight to come back to you." Her heart broke and healed in the same moment. She believed him because he had never once broken a promise. When the noise faded and the forest grew still again, he returned to her side. She wheeled closer, her voice trembling but strong. "Promise me something," she whispered. His eyes met hers, steady and warm. "Anything," he replied. Her lips shook, but she finally said the words that had lived in her heart for so long. "Promise me. You'll never let me go." The soldier's chest tightened, but he smiled softly. "I already made that promise the night I picked you up," he said, "and I'll keep it as long as I live." The girl's tears fell, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of love, of hope, of a new beginning. She reached for him, and he pulled her close, holding her against his chest. The broken cabin, the ruined world, the endless whirl of it disappeared in that moment. Because they had each other, and in each other, they had found something stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than loss. They had found home. They had found love. And no matter what the galaxy thought of a paralyzed alien girl and a human soldier, their story was proof of one truth, that even in the ashes of war, kindness could rebuild and love could heal. And so their new life began. Not perfect, not without danger, but together, and that was enough.